be talking about the IDERA SQL Doctor tool, and I do have the slide up here just as kind of an intro slide, but usually I'll talk about architecture, for example, when I have my slides, just to give a little bit of context as to what to expect when you install this product. But with SQL Doctor, it is a very simple product to install. It doesn't have any complex services or background databases. Basically install it on your workstation, and then you can point it at a SQL instance. You don't have to put any agent on the remote instance or anything like that. So as you can see through that description, there's not much to show as far as an architecture. You have a console that gets installed on your workstation. You point it at the instance that you want to analyze and basically review the data that comes back from that quick collection. So let's go ahead and jump into it here. So this is the tool. Let me go ahead and maximize my screen. I'm going to give two kinds of information here. I'm going to show you how you would configure the tool, but also show you some of the data that you're going to receive when you kick off an analysis. I want to be clear, when you hear the word analysis, that's what this tool is all about. It runs an analysis where it collects data for a short period of time, and then you're able to view the reported results of that. It's not a tool that is going to be continuously monitoring, and that was probably evident in the fact that I said there's not a heavy architecture to this tool. So what you do is you basically analyze instance and then review the data. But before you get to that point, you're going to want to configure the tool. And so you can go into the file drop-down and click Add a Server if you want. There's also the little quick launch links here to add or remove servers or kick off an analysis if you want. Under the Edit screen, you have some options here for general settings. The reports that are built within this tool are very small. Whatever location you decide to store those files for those reports, you'll see them built up with a .sdr file extension, and they're usually a couple of hundred kilobytes, as you can see here. All right, so then you put in your credentials. You designate whether this is a production server or it's doing a lot of OLTP type processing. You can also plug in that it's a cloud-based instance as well. When you add an instance, you have that option. You also have advanced connection settings for collecting WMI specific data or OS metric data. You can either utilize OLE automation or plug in actual Windows credentials. Since we're on this screen, let's just look at these other two tabs at the top. Here are a list of all the types of recommendations that are put into different categories. And we'll see some of the category sorting here in just a minute, but you just go down the list and it'll show you in the description of some of the many types of analysis that it's going to be performing and reporting on within this tool, within the report. So there's a lot here, and we're always evolving in this tool, adding more information, more recommendations as the SQL Server technology changes, and especially recently there's more recommendations around Azure and Amazon, since we're seeing many organizations start moving more to the cloud with some of their instances. There is an option here, when you're doing the analysis, there might be some databases that you don't care about pulling in recommendations for, so you could go through and filter out any of those databases. And then the next part is after you've configured the tool itself, then you'll want to go in and kick off an analysis. I've already added some of my instances here, and I'm in a demo environment, so I only plugged in 2 instances. But if you go to an instance on the left-hand side, it's easy to navigate this tool. As you're probably aware with the other IDERA products, if you've used them, we use the navigation pane on the left-hand side, and then whatever draws your attention that you want to review, you can select it and then view the relevant data on the right-hand side. So with this particular instance, which I have named IDERA Prod VM, just a basic name here, on the right-hand side, the first thing that will happen is it'll run a couple of queries and pull up in the details here without even kicking off an analysis. It's telling me here some of the information that I may want to see right away as far as when the most recent detailed analysis was performed. And you notice it has a little yellow indicator here because the analysis threshold for the amount of time that I want to have an analysis performed on a regular basis, I have it set to 1 day. And you can go in and adjust these thresholds as you see fit for your environment. But it'll throw some yellow indicators if there's anything that might be above its threshold or below a threshold, depending on what you have defined for your configuration. But as you can see, it's all categorized. So performance metrics, it's showing me CPU usage. Just as a basic, FYI, the current CPU usage is a little bit high there. And I have my current threshold, anything above 0 but I probably would adjust that maybe to be anything above 20% or something like that. And so we're able to see some of the findings down here at the bottom. It will throw some indicators there about everything that it discovered as a potential problem. Something also notable to mention with this screen is on the right-hand side, we have these different categories of OS metrics. So if I want, I can expand, like the processes, and I'll run a quick query over to that instance to display my details of my processes running on that instance. Or I'll just kind of move down the list here, the configuration of the network interfaces on this instance. We can collapse that. Processor details, processor performance information, that is. And you can just see down the list, processor cache information, memory performance, and you can scroll to the right to see other details. But this might be some of that initial information you want to know, especially like as a consultant. But you've heard me say consultant a couple of times, but this isn't just for consultants. This could be just in your own environment. You want to do a quick analysis. And by the way, this type of information we're going to see in the Analyze section within the report has actually been also developed and put into the IDERA SQL Diagnostic Manager product. So if you're already using SQL Diagnostic Manager, well, the prescriptive analysis feature does include that reporting aspect of this tool. So you get a lot of that good information right there built into the Diagnostic Manager tool. But from a consultant perspective, or even in your own environment as the DBA, you want to get some quick information, this screen will give you that by running some queries right away to give you some understanding of how the environment's configured and some quick findings in the environment about what could be potentially wrong right away. Next thing we're going to do is run an analysis against the instance. So if I select that instance and go up to the top and select Analyze Server, it pulls up this little wizard window. And I have the option to collect query data using extended events or SQL Trace, either one. And then the select category, these are all the different categories that we can have it analyze and pull back findings and recommendations around. So as you can see, it's pretty broad reaching, anything from the DR configuration to indexes, including missing indexes or duplicate indexes, queries that are running that might be poorly written. It'll look for any signatures of poorly written queries and help to highlight in the query where you need to go to rewrite the query, and some recommendations and next steps for how you should rewrite those queries, resource utilization statistics, from the OS perspective, database and server and security configurations, the overall workload like deadlocking, blocking, long-running jobs, open transactions, and wait stats. Those are all the categories that you have available to analyze. Now the question comes up sometimes about the impact of a tool like this as it runs. And I can tell you that when we developed this tool, understanding that we were giving it the name SQL Doctor, and understanding that, potentially we're looking at and analyzing and diagnosing a very sick, so to speak, SQL instance, that we don't want to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? So the way we've approached the analysis in this tool is we bite off different workloads in chunks. So it's kind of balanced across the board. And even within our QA testing, we simulate a user load of 65% and monitor with our testing to make sure that we're not seeing major spikes or giant fluctuations outside the scope of that simulated user load. So you add your instance like that. And then you go to your filters here. I forgot to show you this here, but you can plug in anything that you want to focus on specifically. Again, narrow it down what you're analyzing so you're not just looking at everything across the board, and target specific application names or specific databases, and you can establish how long you want it to run and analyze. If you know that every day between 2 and 2:30 that you've been having a little bit of a performance lag, then you might decide to kick this off around 2 o'clock and put a 30-minute time interval in there to make sure you catch everything that could be a gotcha in that little time window. All right, so you plug that in, plug in the instance, and then, or plug in the details of how you want the analysis to run on that instance, and then it will run. And then you have below the instance the details of all the analysis that I've run. And I have 3 analyses that I've run in my environment. And we'll just pick on one of them here. This one ran for about 10 minutes. We can click on that and it brings up this report. So a lot of the information you'll find here is going to be kind of matter of fact. Like, for example, I've had databases that haven't had an integrity check performed in some time. Others might be a little bit more revealing about a problem. Like here at the top, we have a deadlock situation. And you can just kind of go down the list. I always look at the little priority ranking here to get a kind of a heat index on what is going to be a possible more critical issue. Here I have a large table with greater than or equal to 1 million rows that has had a high number of modifications since the last time statistics were updated. We can scroll down here a little bit and see what it discovered as a potential problem, when it's a problem, why it would not be a problem, the recommendations. A lot of these findings will also have these learning links at the bottom that you can click on that take you out to third-party articles and expert advice to back up whatever the recommendation is. And you just kind of work through the list here. Some of these are focused primarily on index performance. You can take like this one, there's a duplicate index, for example, and it, again, tells you when it's a problem, why it would not be a problem, the recommendations. At the top, we can click on this optimize script, and it'll bring up a query that will actually, well, I mean, this is a pretty basic one, but it'll remove that duplicate index. You could copy it out if you need to share that with other audiences, or you need to go through some red tape before actually removing the duplicate index or review it, or you can hit the run button from the screen and it'll just reach out and take care of that for you. There is also the undo script associated with that, so if that didn't address your issue or you need to roll back, there is an option there. And as you work through these items, there's a little flagging option here on the left-hand side that you can basically mark them off as being taken care of as you go down the list. Or you can click the block option if you're finding one of these is kind of noisy in your environment. But there, again, are the findings that go along with all those different categories. So I just want to show you on the left-hand side here, there are different ways that we can sort through all of these findings in the report. You could go into the application drop-down and pick on a particular application like this. For SQL command, it found some queries, for example, that maybe we need to consider rewriting. And these are kind of basic. With SQL command, I'm running some select star activity. So if you select show me the problem at the top, it highlights that that was running against a particular database in the query, where in the query it was running, and that was through my just a basic select star from my database, Northwind database, from the customers table. Or instead of sorting and organizing by applications, we could go into categories. If I wanted to focus purely on query optimization, there's a section that I can go to for that, and then click on any finding. Again, at the bottom it tells you what it discovers a potential problem. Select show me the problem, and it highlights in the query where I need to go to rewrite that query as well. And you see the database and all of that detail. Or you can go to other sections. That was the categories, but maybe I want to focus on all activity around one problematic database. So now I have all of my findings within the report sorted by the actual database that the finding is tied to, or by logins, or by recommendations. So as you can see, there's a number of ways we can go through and sort through these details instead of having to just go through the full report. And unless that's what you want to do. You can also email the report. You can export the details out if you need to share this with other audiences in an Excel spreadsheet form. That would include the findings, the recommendations, the learning links. All of that would be included that you would be able to share with another DBA or developer, whoever needs to see this information. Now, since I'm under that instance looking at the findings, I'll just show you that there are a couple of other little performance details we can look at as we go below the reports. Let me collapse that. Here's the sessions. This is making a query right now to bring up the session view. And even within the sessions down at the bottom, it finds different issues with whatever queries are running within those sessions. And you can even click on them to pull up the details. select the Show Me the Problem to view within the query, again, where the problem exists, where you need to consider rewriting the query. And then again, you can review the recommendations, and based on those recommendations, go in and fine-tune the query. Here's the weight statistics. And we have the server level weights, the weighting queries, and again, down at the bottom, any quick findings on anything that's active right now. You can open that up, and it'll highlight everything in the list that is associated with the quick finding. And there's the show problem as well if you want to pop that open to review the query. And then we have query plan stats. And down at the bottom, it's analyzing all of that detail to display a list of all the findings or potential problems that we could drill into. It doesn't have a heavy architecture. It doesn't have a heavy impact to your environment. And it just presents it there nice and clean for you to review. Down at the bottom, here are the recent findings. So if I click on something here, it's going to light up in the top as well, whatever the specific query is that was having a problem. And one other thing that you can do along with this tool through the detailed analysis is just take your own queries and plug them in. Through the Diagnose Query button, you select the database, plug in your query and diagnose it, and just get individual recommendations for that query if you want to. And that is the SQL Doctor tool. So we wanted to show you this tool today to kind of whet your taste for it as something that might be a way as a lightweight tool to give you some good information about your environment. Might even whet your taste for some of the things we're doing within our full-scale performance and availability monitoring tool called SQL Diagnostic Manager. Like I said, SQL Doctor features are included in that tool as well through what we call prescriptive analysis. So I'd encourage you to check out that product as well. But if you're interested in downloading the product, again, go out to www.idera.com. We have this little online store. You basically go to www.idera.com/buy-now/online store. I hope that this has been interesting to you and that you're interested in downloading the product. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and we can get on a phone call and discuss it further. Again, you can download it from www.idera.com.